Okay, I was just noticing I have one loose end to tie up here, and that is that wall doesn't touch, but I've got everything in the right place except for the end point of that wall. So if I drag that down, see what it did? It just messed up everything. It was all looking perfect. So that's why I kept it back. And I can't remember if I've shown you this tool yet or not. I don't think I have. But when Revit wants to clean up a joint of two walls at a corner and it's not the way you want it to go, you can force Revit to stop cleaning up at that particular intersection. And the way you do it is you select each of the walls that are coming together. So I'm going to start with that new wall. And see the little node at the end that I grip? If you right-click on that, you can say Disallow Join at the end of that wall. And after you do that, if you select the wall again, you'll see a little T-shape there in blue. That T-shape indicates that it's been disallowed, but if you click the T, that will re-allow the joining. So you don't want to accidentally click it again. The problem is, if you're not zoomed in and you go to grab this and move it, and you're not careful, you might have accidentally clicked on the T, which re-allows the join. So disallow it, and then if you're going to grab the grip and move it, make sure you're pointing to the grip and not to the T, and drag it down. And sometimes that'll work. Other times you may have to disallow the join on the end of that other chunk of wall so that it doesn't try to participate in a hand-holding process either. So now I've got it the way I want it, and I want to do a join geometry because I don't want to see a fat line where the two touch anymore. So now I go to Modify Join Geometry. Better save. And so now I'm going to pick the new brick wall, and I'm going to probably have to pick one and then brick and then the other for those existing walls. Come on. It's taking so long to save here tonight. I'm going to start breaking my own rule and not agreeing to save. That hourglass is really an hourglass, not a minute glass. Anyway, this little tool where you disallow the join is going to come up in situations, and that's why I gave you an example that had this quirky little corner here, because we had to really spend a little more time cleaning this up. You may not run into that in every project, but sooner or later you're going to hit something like this. So I'm going to join that wall to this one, and then that wall to this one. So now that looks like the way I want it to look. And then if you look real closely at the handout, I was thinking I might have blown that up to a larger scale, but I didn't. So if you look at this corner here, I didn't really call it out, but what I'm doing here is I'm adding a little chunk of plaster because that wall got demolished, and it's probably kind of a raw edge right there where the brick and plaster was cut off. And we want to finish that back off with something nice and clean. So I'm going to place a new wall. I'm in my new plan. Make sure you're in the right phase plan. Wall. And I'm going to go back to my 1-inch plaster, furring plaster wall we used in assignment A. Location line, finish face, interior. I don't have to space bar. I'm going to come down to even with that corner, if I can get it to stop there. And I'm going to turn the corner to there. And what is that overlapping with? I think it's going up too high probably. So I'm going to select those. And they should stop 8'4" off the first floor. And I'm just going from memory because I remember we cut that opening 8'4". Now if I blow up my scale to like 1/2 inch equals a foot, and look at that, then I'm going to need to join geometry because remember we disallowed the join at the end of this wall. So I'm going to have to manually join the new brick and stud wall to the new plaster, and the new plaster to the old brick. And so from there, you could either say, okay, they're going to put some studs in there, or you could actually say, oh, I'm going to drag this over a little bit closer, but you still probably would want to leave a little gap there. And it didn't want to move that because I'd have to go back to the existing plan. So this is getting pretty nitpicky here. But really what I would want to get that perfect is if I want this dimension here from there to there to say be 2 inches, Then I'm going to want 4 inches to that seam. And you just don't have to get quite this nitpicky. I won't grade off if you don't. But I could put a reference plane again. Sometimes it's easier to put a reference plane in there and dimension to that than it is to get the things to end right where you want them. That's 3 inches now. I'm going to move the reference plane to 4 inches. Then I'm going to grab that chunk of wall and I'm going to grab it and move it to there. And what's going on there? That's a little weird. Sometimes Revit anticipates the next phase, and it's not worth worrying too much about, but I need to pull that back to there now. So there, my demolition plan still looks good, and my existing plan looks good again. So I don't really need that. I can even get rid of the reference plane if I want. I could get rid of those reference planes now because they were a means to an end. Then I could edit witness lines on that. Well, I don't want a dimension on the existing plan. I just want a dimension. Possibly on the demolition plan, I want to dimension that. Here's my demolition plan, and I could tell the guys with the hammers, let's shoot. And I probably want to say from there to there. 1 foot 11. And on the new plan, I've got too many views open. I'm going to close hidden now. I want to wrap those ends in plaster. So I'm going to go to shaded. And I'm going to come up with a new plaster wall here, create similar. And I'm just going to wrap that finish face exterior and come down to there. Because I don't want to see the finished face of brick facing into my breakfast room. Now that may be a matter of personal preference. You know, depending on how you want to renovate this old house, you might like the idea of showing finished brick. So that comes around. And then I would want to do a join geometry between that plaster and that brick because they don't join when they're parallel to each other by default. You have to force it to do that. And so there's my new plan. And then I'm going to add my window finally. So I had a casement window. Casement, double sill. It's a double window. 2 casement windows built together. And you can ignore all those Marvins. I meant to take those out. So we want an 80 by 48 that's 6'8" by 4'0" and a 16th. That's that one. And I want the head height of the window to be 6'9" and 3/16. Place the window, make sure I'm hovering over the exterior face. Dimension from this point here to the center line of the window. And that dimension is 4'2", so I'm going to select the window, move that to 4'2", and then I'm going to run that through like that. And then I'm ready to put, I've got a back window on here, and then I've got a door over there. So I'm going to let you all do the back window and the door, and now we're ready to put a floor in here. So I'm going to keep on rolling, and hopefully we'll still have a little time left over for questions. Home. Remember, I'm in my new plan here, floor, and I want the same kind of wood, 2 by 10, 3/4 inch plywood wood finish. We're going to use the same floor. Pick walls, extend interwall to core, and in this case we actually want to go to the outside face. I'm going to flip that. Outside face of the core, which means that the floor framing is going to go to the outside. The sheathing will come down and hit the band board the way it's built here. And I can pick this wall there, that wall there, and then here I'm going to have to get a little more creative. I'm going to hit that wall, and then I could pick the back of plaster there. That actually works. If you didn't put the plaster in first, you could use the pick lines instead of pick walls, which I'm going to do here, so that I go up to the edge of that floor, that finished area right there. Now I just TR to trim all these corners. And we'll see how good I am at trimming. If I miss a corner, it's going to get mad at me. So I'm going to miss that one on purpose, and I get this message. Lines must be in closed loops. The highlighted lines are open on one end, and it oranges in the problem area. So I say continue. I missed one, and I trim it. And then here's one more thing. That's an easy mistake to make. Look in your properties. See how it remembered the height offset -6 inches? That's because we built that little concrete pad at the beginning of the assignment, and we set it -6 inches. It remembers that. So you have to go back and change it back to 0, offset from the first floor. 0, and apply. And then I can finish my sketch. And I say, no, don't attach anything to the underside. I say, yes, go ahead and join geometry. So then I can cut a section through my new addition here. And I can go up to my View tab, Section. I'm going to do a building section. I'm going to cut it right through where that new kitchen window will be there. Put up. So there's my new brick wall. Here's my new floor. And I'm going to go ahead and drop, and I'm going to have you do this, even though it's not in the handout. Let's go ahead and pick all of the walls that we created, all the new ones, so I can do select all instances in the entire project. Because I know there's only 3 of those. It says walls 3, brick and area and stud. And I want that to drop down. Let's see, we have 9 1/4 inch, 2 by 10 and 3/4 is 10 3/4, plus 1 1/2 inch, so that would be 11 3/4, 12 1/4. Let's make it 11 3/4. First floor offset -0, 11 3/4. Did I do the math right here? I actually want another 1/2 inch. So it would be -12 1/4. I can do it as 12, or I can do 1/0. Then I can do the join geometry here between my floor and my wall. And that's how typical platform construction works in wood studs. And if you remember what we did in assignment E, we built a little detail. We put a detail component in there for wood blocking. So we'll come back later and put a foundation under that. But for now, I'd like you to go ahead and drop those new walls so that the base offset of the new walls is -1 foot or 1/4. Then we'll just cut the foundation up to the underside of that. So I'm going to go ahead and save this recording, and then we'll put our roof on section